Hello, everybody. Welcome to At 7. And today I have two very experienced, well informed guests with me today. Of course, Lalit Ambardar, very, very much in tune with what is happening in Kashmir, one of the most prominent voices about that region, from that region. So, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, Professor Dipankar Sengupta from Jammu University. I was keen to get Professor on because I want to try and understand what kind of job this one of these terror stooges exactly had in the university, because a PRO of a university sounds kind of interesting in terms of what he does. But Lalitji, if you can start us off and for our viewers, just break it down what exactly has happened.
See, let's begin with 5th of August 2019. Kashmir Jihad is a military problem. It's pan-Islamism inspired, it's terror infested, it's expansionist. So it has to be tackled militarily. What we did on 5th of August 2019 was beginning of the process of dismantling of that Islamo-fascistic ecosystem that had been prevailing in Kashmir for the past 70 years, that has been prevailing in Kashmir for the past 70 years. And this Article 370 was one of the principal contributory factors in the contemporary sense. Otherwise, Hindu genocide began 700 years in Kashmir, and it still continued. So you are beginning to do it. It's difficult because the society is militarized, society is Islamized, administration is Islamized, polity is Islamized, so-called mainstream polity. They have no qualms in claiming that they're stooges of Pakistan. Can you imagine? You have a sitting member of Parliament of National Conference from Baramulla constituency in present Lok Sabha. He had the audacity to rant Pakistan Zindabad slogan in live Jammu and Kashmir assembly. And when journalists asked him outside, why did you do it? You know what he said? He said, मैं मुसलमान हूँ, भावुक हो गया. I'm a Muslim, I became emotional. He is a sitting member of parliament in the Parliament of India. And then you have PDP, so-called mainstream political party, and its main political agenda is it's called self-rule. You know what's on top of this self-rule? To have joint control of India and Pakistan over Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh. You know what that would mean? Prior to 5th August 2019, if you have to go by self-rule, right? So you already had Indian and Jammu Kashmir flag on secretariats in Jammu and Srinagar. If you go by self-rule, you would have to have Pakistani flag also there. And there were no qualms in saying that Pakistan's a rishta kya la. So this is mainstream, so-called mainstream polity. And then you have administration. About the university, you were asking the professor about it. Let me tell you, long time ago, SAFMA, this SAC, South Asia Media Federation,
Journalist
which is part
grouping.
of the SAFMA. So its founding general secretary is Imtiaz Ahmed, Pakistani. And he was taken by Indian so-called liberal journalists to Kashmir University long time ago. And there he was greeted with the slogans of Pakistan Zindabad in Kashmir University, right? By the students, by the faculty, everybody. And he was feeling very happy about it. He was feeling and felt that this look, Kashmiri Muslims are pro-Pakistani. Then on his way back to balance the trip, the so-called senior, I don't want to name him now, senior journalist, Delhi-based, and he took him to Kashmiri Hindus camps in Jammu. And naturally, he was greeted with Pakistan Murdabad. And then he comes to Delhi. Times of India, there used to be a column, I don't know whether it's still there, Q&A column used to be there, right? Very popular column. And he was interviewed there. And he was asked about Kashmir, about his trip. He says, he doesn't talk about what happened in Kashmir University. He talks about Jammu refugee camps. He says they have become the dens of RSS, just because they raised Pakistan Murdabad slogan. What did he expect? He would be greeted the same way that we was treated in Kashmir University. Similarly, Justice Ganju, 80 plus years old, retired, he was killed. And he's one of the first casualties of this Kashmir Jihad. And why was he killed? Because he had pronounced death sentence on Makbul Butt, one of the again contemporaries, one of the first jihadists in Kashmir. And can you imagine the public prosecutor of the case, a local Muslim, investigating officer, local Muslim, all the witnesses, I repeat, all the witnesses, all local Muslim, and only Justice Ganju was picked up because he was a Hindu. That's the kind of system you have. And the refugees have lot many problems. Those who are living in Jammu, they are in very bad conditions. Some of them are in kind of living a life of deprivation, and it's very unfortunate and sad they continue to be ignored. In fact, the present government at Delhi has not even formally acknowledged what would happen to Kashmiri Hindus with genocide. In fact, I feel very awkward situations when I'm told by the representatives of spokesperson of it wasn't genocide. So I tell let's have a debate. And yes, this is a very sad situation when you want to win the hearts and minds of the people, the Islamist people. I'm not talking. I know Lieutenant Fayaz is my hero. But, there are you'll come across very few Aurangzebs in rest of India in today, because even Muslims do not name their children Aurangzeb. But the rifleman Aurangzeb from Jammu Kashmir, from Punch, he's my hero because he died. He died for India. And can you imagine what his father, when his dead body was brought to home, and what his father said? He said, "I have four more." I think he has five sons. Four more sons. They are also going to join India now. They are my heroes. DSP Pandit, Ayub Pandit. How was he lynched on a auspicious, so-called sacred night of Shab Barat in Jama Masjid? He was lynched there, and and there was no outrage. The point is there was no outrage. And I tell you one more incident. Very recently, it's on my Twitter account also. Ex Inspector General of Police, SM Sahai, IPS officer, he gave an interview to a YouTuber, and in that I have written a post also on that, and I titled it, "If this is the understanding of Kashmir Jihad in North Block, then I'm not surprised that Kashmir Jihad continues to bleed." He said so many things, but one thing what he said he narrated an episode. He said they have been even more gory, heart-wrenching incident. I think that was a faux pas, because he opposes, he's against Kashmir files, but he says there were even worse cases there, and he recalls he was called in early in the morning, then he had to come to Kralakot. That's the heart of downtown Srinagar. A lot of Kashmiri Hindus live in that area, and the case was a mother and daughter. Mother and daughter were raped. Not only that, this is what ex-IGP, IPS SM Sai says. They were shot in the vagina. And he says, the same breath, he says that, since it was a rebellion, he doesn't call it jihad, he doesn't call it insurgency, he calls it insurgency, of course, he doesn't call it jihad, he doesn't say even a word about Islamism. He says the public sympathy was with them despite the violence. And at the same time, he says Kashmir file vilifies the common Muslim. So tell me one thing, but it's very interesting to note, like you have an impression about terrorists in Naxal infested. They live in jungles. They don't live in the town. They don't live in the villages. They're like bhagi. They're living in the jungles and hills. In Kashmir, they don't do that. They don't live in camps outside the city. They live in houses. They live in day-to-day living house families. They just simply come out of a family, kill a person, then go into another family. They are welcome in the family. There's no outrage. You can shed crocodile tears, talk about Kashmir, talk about a Hindu Muslim. They still say Kashmir is known for Hindu Muslim yakjahiti. That's a word, popular word they use, local Urdu word, yakjahiti, unity. Tell me, in essence of Kashmiri Hindu, they have the guts to say this when only because by the not one rapist, murderer, or murderer has ever been charged. It's 32, so we got in the 33rd year of exile, and nobody is talking about it. And
I want to
can
ask
tell
you
you
this: when these, what about the families when their loved ones have been killed so brutally in such inhumane ways, and there's no possibility of even justice? How do they reconcile with it?
Advaita, you know, I don't know. There's a very famous, very popular Kashmiri actor, TV actor, theater actor. I was once visiting another senior citizen. There are people you sometimes have to attend to them. Because their illness is compounded by the fact that they are away from the homeland. So when I was entering the Apollo hospital to see somebody else, this senior actor called Moksha Devaman, unki आत्मा को, he's also no more. He passed away last year. And he just saw me, sat in the lobby of Apollo hospital, squatted literally. He says, अपने सिर पे हाथ रखेगा, Lalit, मैं क्या करूं? I said, what happened? He said, my dad says, open that window. I want to open that window. I want to see Shankaracharya temple from there. And doctor says he has no problem. He can go home. This way of suffering because there has been so carelessness from the Indian state, Indian judiciary, and Indian public. I say Hindus have been careless about what has happened to Kashmiri Hindus. They think पहाड़ के दूसरी पार है हो गया कितने हैं 2-4 लाख तो हैं कितने हैं it has been left to us to count the dead. Government records show about less than 300. Now, our people have collected data which goes around 2,000 people, and each killing has been so brutal. Like I said about this murder of mother and daughter, and then she shooting them in vagina. Have you heard of this kind of barbarity? I don't know whether India saw this kind of barbarity even after partition. So this even Yazidis don't do that. Even Yazidis have not suffered. They have taken their women, Islamists, and they've sold them, they used them, brutalized them. But killing somebody by shooting in the vagina, have you heard of it? And there's no uproar, nothing. This is what it is. And I promise, again, I repeat, I've been saying it for about 30 years. We not forget. This government tomorrow will have to acknowledge it. If you do not, the Islamic Fisipiras throwing physical across the countries because you have not punished the perpetrators of genocide of Kashmiri Hindus. Everywhere. You see the audacity in that in Kerala, you saw there was what is that Islamic friend that is banned recently. You saw that visual. There was a huge procession going. A small child was sitting on the shoulder of his father.
I think
Christian, you prepare for your
we've just lost him.
Antim Sanskar ki samagri kar karo. This is the mindset. Only because Kashmir Jihad is being downplayed. You're not talking about it. That's a tragedy. That's a tragedy. And they are not. Nobody is reconciled with it. Yes, it's a fact. There is a section of the society that syndrome of Stockholm syndrome is, God forbid, has set in many. So if nobody is coming to a rescue, some people are feeling so nostalgic. They want to go back. They said, come on, we have to live with them. And they are ready to compromise. And it's only because, I don't know whether it's a policy of the government, possibly it's the postal policy of the government that Kashmiri Hindus genocide has to be put under the wraps because you have to win the confidence, you have to win the vishwas of those people who are perpetrators of this heinous crime. After 40 years after independence of so-called independence of India, you have the whole Aborigine community suffer genocidal exodus, and we don't talk about it. It's now television has come now. I've been, I used to contribute to Times of India, Hindustan. They would never take my articles. It's very difficult to concise and comment on an article and concise into 150 letter to editor. This is a mercy from Times of Hindustan Times. I would respond to every column, every editorial that was published, and they would do it me a mercy. It was a condition one that they will publish my rejoinder only once in fortnight. And that I promise you, I assure you, I think it was the only alternate voice in the print media that was Lalit Ambardar, letter to editor in Times of Hindustan. Otherwise, every second day you would have editorial column in support of Kashmir Jihad. I have been in an auditorium, Advaita. I have gate crashed into an auditorium across Delhi. There's not a single auditorium in Delhi from where I have not been evicted physically through bouncers and even taken into detained by the police. And the conversation inside the auditorium would never be whether India should compromise on Kashmir. It was always taken for granted India has to compromise on Kashmir. The discourse today about how much India could be going to bend on Kashmir. When I would raise my voice, they would throw at me. There were quite a few more. We would just see in singles, in two, three, four, and we have been listening. I tell you, we can claim that Kashmir continues to be part of India because we have put a tough resistance against any compromise in Kashmir, till which every successive governments have been trying to do it. I tell you one more thing. I don't know whether you're aware of it. Hurriyat Conference's Delhi office was inaugurated by somebody who rose to become the Prime Minister of India. Can you
No.
imagine? This was the kind of infiltration. This was the kind of machinations or maybe compromise North Bloc was committing.
Who
That's
is
it.
this?
Why he's no more. I don't want to name him. You can guess. My ruling in July, it was with great pomp and show. It was inaugurated by somebody who became Prime Minister of India. You can imagine. And I expected him to acknowledge Kashmiri Hindus as suffered a genocide. But he said once, he did show compassion. But I know that was politics, real politics, rhetorical. But nothing has been done. Even now, the Kashmir Hindu genocide has not ended. Even now, Hindus have not been spared there. Only 3 days ago, three of them were
Right.
they were attacked.
Right. And this is when I want to get Professor in. Professor, Lalit raises a very important point. Even today, there are Kashmiri Pandits who are being targeted and exterminated. There's no other way to put it. That's what's happening. Yet, we are not able to support and bring out facts that point to a Hindu genocide that took place and is taking
Uh,
place, maybe less frequently, but has been continuing.
Advaita, I think we've lost track of this entire discussion. We were supposed to speak, related to this, we were supposed to speak on the removal from service of three persons
Correct.
under Article 311 of the Constitution of India. Now, the question is, how did these characters get out there? That's extremely
Yeah.
important. You know, uh, Lalit ji has correctly alluded to this entire edifice of sympathy, narrative, and storytelling that moved away the narrative from the enormity of the tragedy of the Kashmiri Pandits to self-determination for Jammu and Kashmir. You know, how they had been denied this particular thing at 1947 by a perfidious Indian state, and all the problems that had occurred was because of this perfidy, and therefore, in this tectonic shift, Kashmiri Pandits got hurt, and so on and so forth. So, this is the narrative in which everybody colluded, rather, most of the intelligentsia colluded. So, this is basically a natural outcome of denial of rights. Now, it went into terrorism. Now, we defeated terrorism in the sense. You see, in the 90s, late 90s, terrorism was defeated, but Indian nationalism lost. Why did how did it lose? While overt manifest terrorism was gotten rid of, there was nobody to speak for the Indian state and Indian nationalism where narrative setting in Jammu Kashmir was concerned. So it was between people who advocated autonomy and people who advocated Pakistan. And every narrative said India must loosen its hold on Kashmir. India must give on Kashmir. And this entire false narrative that was built up was shot on facts from day one. Unfortunately, the government of India and Indians got into such a defensive mindset that these false facts, this false narrative was never seriously challenged till I think from mid 2014-15 onwards, where the Jammu Kashmir Study Circle finally started bringing literature onto the domain. Now, Kashmiri Pandit professors, intellectuals would challenge it. But given the fact that there's a cacophony of voices shouting one thing, these were often voices, which were never really heard. But now, how did these characters, anti-nationals, get into government service? That is the question that we want to ask. Now, this is basically, part of the process, I would say, which was accelerated after 2002 when Mufti Saab came to power. He said it is that old Johnsonian dictum. It is better to have them inside pissing outside than outside pissing inside. What they forgot that they were getting in very dangerous separatists, not just autonomous. These were basically pro-Pakistan voices. So what you did, you thought you would basically control them by giving them jobs. Now, in that run up from 2002 onwards to 2009, a lot of government employment was added, but in very nebulous forms. So you ask me, what is this PRO?
I think we've lost Professor Lalit. Professor, can you hear us? No, I think we've lost. So coming back to taking off from where Professor went, these jobs were sort of handed out as a sort of appeasement in this period. Is that correct? And even this gentleman who's been arrested right now was someone who was brought in by Syed Shah Gilani. They say that there was no sort of advertising for the position, no CV requested, nothing.
But this has been happening there always. Some of the founders of this contemporary Kashmir Jihad in Kashmir were doctors serving government hospitals. They were one. I am able to recall Dr. Guru. He was supposed to be such a popular cardiologist, and Kashmiri Hindus refused. His own patients refused to go to him because they were scared. This guy is dangerous. They were the people who got involved in it, and then Jamaati Islami, right? It's not only Jamaati Islami because it's a very popular name, and I think that's what the reason the government of India, the present establishment, has banned Jamaati Islami there, but which runs lot many schools, lot many other establishment, NGOs, and all that. But there's also Ahle Hadith. These are the sources of ideological backup. Jihad is like an enterprise. You have to have men, material, money, and above all, you need ideology behind it. And that, I think, that has been allowed to go scot free. Even what successive governments have done later on, that they facilitated their they adopted them for their own political purposes, because South Kashmir, for example, this Mufti's family comes from South Kashmir. There was one time this South Kashmir was cleansed of jihadists, the one which is so volatile today, with the help of counter-insurgents group called Ikhwanul Muslimin. They were terrorists. They were insurgents earlier. Then later on, they changed their loyalties. They became Indians. Their leader Kukapare, he was killed while singing paeans to Indian nation, right? And he fought elections and all that. They, along with the army, they guided the army, helped the army. Together, they cleansed South Kashmir of jihadists, whole of South Kashmir. I repeat. And when this Mufti government came in and all that, and national conference, they all ganged up till last of Ikhwanis were killed, or they went underground, or they joined other outfits like Hizbul Mujahideen and all. This is a fact, and that's why the South Kashmir again became, hub of pan-Islamic Kashmir Jihad. And these people have been always there, but yes, it became free for all. And there was nobody to check them. There was nobody to correct them. So they gave them preferences. They were all there. Otherwise, how could you expect? It's not they were limited to state government jobs. The people who were supposed to be interacting with the central government, I'm sure the central government knew who this guy is. And I don't go by the logic that BJP says they went into alliance with PDP because they wanted to know what is happening inside. What the hell is Indian state? Kashmir was part of India. They didn't need to be part of the government to know it. Everybody knew it. I knew it. So I'm sure everybody, Dulat knew it. They're following, I'm afraid Dulat doctrine continues to be followed in North Block. Everybody knew it. The only agenda was, if you want to hold the Kashmir, it has to be held with India only with the help and support of the very people who want to create a wedge between between Delhi and Srinagar. Not only that, to create a wedge between Delhi and Srinagar and to come closer with Rawalpindi. That's it. That's how it was. Everybody knew it. So we went by that logic. If you have to win them over, so you have to win them over. You have to appease them. That's what we did. That's why not a single case. Can you imagine one case of Bita Karate, who is self-confessed butcher of Kashmiri Hindus, right? His case was announced. His trial was announced with pomp and show. Everybody talked about it. It was so much of propaganda. First trial was abandoned because the advocate of the council, this is present governance regime, the counsel for the victim's family was not given security. He returned from the Srinagar airport. So nothing is moving on because you don't want to annoy them. That's the agenda, and that we have to correct. Because to assume, and I repeat, there are very scant, there are national voices among Kashmiri Muslims. You're jeopardizing their lives. You are demoralizing them because you are still continuing to fuel those very elements, to help those very elements to come to the forefront who are responsible for the turmoil, current turmoil in Kashmir. Farooq Abdullah, he pleads, he asks China to help us get 370 back, and you call him a mainstream politician. And you should see what kind of venom they spew in local language in Srinagar. Delhi mein Ram ka wo bhajan karte hain, when Srinagar, what they do, how they appeal the local masses. It's only through the jobs. Farooq Abdullah, in last elections, his popular appeal for voters was the slogan or statement was, "Hamare bacche naukri ke liye nahi marte, hamare bacche tourism ke liye nahi marte, hamare bacche qaum ke liye marte." And what is that qaum? Jinnah's two-nation theory-led form of exclusivity and incompatibility of Islam. And Mehbooba Mufti, just government has announced, some land will be given to landless people of Jammu and Kashmir, and jobs will be given to jobless people, local jobless people. And she goes and joins Patna get together to mobilize rest of India against Narendra Modi. The same Bahar ke log in Kashmir mein, she gives statements again. These way Bahar ke log. Who are Bahar ke log?
What is the deal with going to mandirs and all? Lalit ji, she started going to mandirs and all, na? There were some photographs doing around.
That they have been doing it before. Also, I've seen even jihadis who deserve to be hanged 30 years ago. They also visit our Kirvane and facilitated. I repeat, facilitated by the state.
Professor, please come in.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was talking about the manner in which a lot of separatists, a lot of pro-Pakistani elements were given state employment with the hope that, they would become voices for moderation. In fact, what these characters did was to utilize these positions in the state government to be even more subversive. There was a time from 2004 to 2009 for the initial years when there seemed to be some sort of a change. Tourism was coming in, government employment was easing, and there seemed to be hope in the air. So it was not visible at that particular point in time what these actual characters were doing. It became very visible from 2009 to 2011, wherever there was a problem. And it became even more visible from 2016 onwards when Burhan Wani was killed. You see, I am pretty active on social media and I would interact with these people on social media. These were government officials in government jobs, and the kind of statements that they would come out with respect to the accession of the state, their pro-Pakistani feelings, their open support for the killings that followed Charlie Hebdo, surprised me because that was in open social media. Now, of course, they've deleted all those and they've come out with statements saying, our account was hacked into. So this is the kind of statements now they come out with. Now, you see, what surprises me is the small number of cases that have been, for which Article 311 have been invoked. Now, I can understand that the government wants to be absolutely sure that you want to basically get rid of a guy without inquiry. You must have your facts on hand. Otherwise, you dismiss somebody, he goes to court and comes back. It becomes a problematic thing. But the branch and root transformation that we thought would happen post 5th and 6th article, August. I think that in a sense is, at least where government services are concerned, have not happened. But the other thing is the following. You know, Lalitji talked about some people having a Stockholm syndrome, etc. And in October 2019, I was in Srinagar and I was talking to this particular gentleman. He said, no, things are becoming very bad, and after some time it will become even worse. I said, the state will have it under control in the next 6 months. Now, he got a call or a visit from a very trusted policeman who said, we will control it within 2 months. See, the ability of the Jammu Kashmir police to control the situation on the ground has been a revelation. That if you let the law and order agencies do their job, they can easily do it. Unfortunately, by giving leeway to separatists, by pandering to certain sentiments, what we do is to undermine the nationalists within the valley. See, what we tell them is the following, that you are not valued. These are the characters that we have to win over, and that is why, sorry, you make your own accommodation. That is foolish. If anything has been demonstrated till today, it is the fact that the separatists can bark, they can do nothing. That your security forces on the ground have all the information. You see, Lalitji talked about assassinations being carried on, and you alluded to Kashmiri Pandits being killed, workers being killed. But what is most remarkable is that within 3-4 days, that character is identified, he is also neutralized. Where is this information coming from? Information is coming from locals who are fed up with these particular characters. The information grid is strong, the information grid is revealing. Now, now you may ask, why is there no widespread revulsion when this killing occurs? You see, widespread open revulsion of such actions have their consequences. You're not sure that if you come out and you say, look, this is wrong, you don't know what's going to happen to you. The VVIPs, they may be separatists, they may be autonomous, they are protected. But for an individual to come out and target another guy, nobody prevents that. So I understand why people don't come out and protest when this happens. But the fact, yeah.
That's in the valley. But what Lalitji said is also important. Across the countries, Hindus in general, even now when it's going on, when there are targeted killings of Kashmiri Pandits, why are we not seeing that level of outrage that needs to be witnessed in things like this?
Look, if it had continued and if the perpetrators had not been caught and neutralized, I think that outrage would have been seen. But the fact is, till today, I'm telling you, there was a killing recently, or rather a shooting recently, 3 Bihari workers were shot. Rest assured, if the past record is any indication, within 1 or 2 weeks, that perpetrator will be found out, he will be neutralized. Rest assured it will happen. It is the certainty.
That is the law taking its course. But I'm just saying, if you see what happened in France, they knew who the perpetrators were. They were cops who got dead that in the right? And you saw what followed after that, the outrage. I'm not saying that's what people need to do. But certainly, I mean, there has to be more of a vociferous calling out of this. Otherwise, this is just brushed under the carpet and then we're all complicit in it.
But that is the way the narrative on Jammu Kashmir has been built up. You have to squarely identify the reasons why this violence has occurred. You are not identifying the reasons for which this violence has occurred because you feel it is not convenient, you've controlled it anyway. Why shame a community? That is basically the attitude. Okay, why shame this particular community since we're controlling it anyway? So let us keep silent about this, and if we keep silent about this, ultimately we will weed out everybody and all will be hunky-dory. Will this actually happen? Let us see. If it does not happen, if this continues, I think whether the government likes it or not, you will see reactions on the ground. What my claim is, the reaction on the ground in a sense has not been seen because invariably these characters have been identified and neutralized.
I think Laliji disagrees, so I'm just going to let him come in now.
No, I would imagine Lalitji would disagree. I would disagree, but this is my opinion.
I agree. I respect your opinion, sir. Sir, I follow jihad conflicts globally, and I don't see Kashmir in isolation. It's a part of the same Islamist arc that arises from Middle East, traverses Afaq. Kashmir is only a Himalayan end to it. And please remember, their target is not Kashmir. Kashmir has been a hanging fruit for them. They thought they will get it, and Indian government was succumbing. We almost gave it to them. Their eyes are on Lal Killa in Delhi. Imagine the same Ghazwa-e-Hind war 1,000 years ago that it began, and partition of India in the name of Islam was the biggest achievement of that Ghazwa-e-Hind war. And next is Kashmir. And in today, when you're talking about it, look, if you have to, when you talk about there was a kind of things were good during a 2000 early, that was Vajpayee era, when we talk about, then followed by early years of Manmohan Singh era. Please remember, it was a strategic lull. I've been talking about even those days, because that time India was in talks with Pakistan. This Vajpayee started with Musharraf, and Musharraf was only waiting. ISI was only waiting how much India is going to ban. And what we were talking about, almost PDP's self-rule was being discussed. Thank God, Agra meet flopped. Otherwise, we're written off Kashmir and Agra. So what was left, Manmohan Singh took over. It is infamously said that Manmohan Singh had prepared even Nobel Prize award ceremony speech, because that was the kind of compromise India was likely to do. I've said it so many times. We are ISI is the most efficient subversive and agency in the world. It's more subversive than CIA, and they know what to do. And as far as India is concerned, they are very, very efficient. I told you the penetration. If they make you, Dulat and Durrani's book, jointly authored book, in that ISI chief announces that this was our creation, and Dulat never. We are stooges of Pakistan operating on the soil of India, yet we have a politician who would go and inaugurate the office in Delhi. And then we have same Dulat. Also, he even calls them my friends, my brothers. He calls those people who used to openly lead these. They would go about like warlords. They're living. I don't want to name them. He names them. They are his brothers. They're his friends. He's in his memoir, in his writings, he writes about them. And they were the stooges of Pakistan. And
Laliji,
allowed it to happen because we thought that we are getting peace, but Pakistan was not. The moment they realized, even now, whatever is happening in Kashmir, you said about they are identifying the perpetrators of killers of Hindus. No, that's not that. How do we know? Who says that this has been happening for a lot of time? That you kill somebody, and then you say we have an encounter. We know there are terrorists in there. We know how they are living there. We don't touch them many times. We touch them when we think we need to quell the public sentiment, aggressive sentiment. And tell me one thing: if that was the thing, if you are killing the perpetrators of present-day killings of Kashmiri Hindus, what is preventing for the government for punishing those and they are living who have committed the heinous crimes of Kashmiri Hindus? Yasin Malik, for example, he's not being tried for genocide of Kashmiri Hindus. Although Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front was banned for two reasons. One, that it started separatism in Kashmir. Number two, that it is responsible for genocide of Kashmiri Hindus. And ironically, he is being tried for money laundering. Not even for killing. Forget about Kashmiri Hindus. 3 Air Force non-combatant officers that he claimed on BBC. He said it on BBC's Hard Talk show. He claimed, and that's a confession.
Couple of issues out here. Yeah, couple of issues.
It's a very strict, very strong security grid in Operation Kashmir, no doubt about it. And wherever they are finding a breach, they are hitting the targets. And I'm afraid You cannot sustain this kind of security grid for long unless you hit, like you said, Professor said that you have to hit the reasons, and the reasons are ideological. The reasons are extraterritorial loyalties. The reasons are using naked use of religion. That is what has to be cut, and I'm sure you will find Kashmiri Muslims coming forward. There are very few. I repeat, there is scant. I'm so concerned about the security. They come out and do it so boldly. They're very innocent people, very nice people, and they claim that we are culturally Hindus and by religion are Muslims. We're Indians, and we have to respect it. And they become very vulnerable. And you cannot provide every security, every citizen of Kashmir. It's not possible forever. Look, in Kashmir, the security grid is very tight, and as a result, they are not opening up. They're reviving their vulnerable points in Jammu region. Poonch and Rajouri has been in news for a long time. Even today, there was an attempt to breach the LOC there. They have not leave it. I tell you, sir, ma'am, दुनिया में कहीं पे भी nowhere jihad has been reversed by development, tourism, money pumping. You can't do it. In Afghanistan, the Russians were for 10 years. They built townships. Americans were there for 20 years. They spent so much of money there. We spent so much of money there. We built dams there. We built their parliament. You know what did they do in that parliament now? They passed Sharia laws to inflict, to decide how many how many lashes are to be inflicted on a woman if her ankle is visible.
Okay,
so
let me come in out here.
Back by 40 years, not 30 years. Afghanistan comes back by 40 years.
You see,
Professor,
what happened?
Unless reforms come within Islam, jihad you can contain it. You can contain it. Central Africa is spreading they're spreading tentacles in Central Africa like anything. One by one, you will see the Central African countries following to jihadis. The only difference it is they keep on changing their loyalty from Al Qaeda to ISIS. South Philippines, Abu Sayyaf group. It's much older than Kashmir Jihad. The only change that is happening there is only they keep either they are in Al Qaeda or they are.
I think we'll discuss this. I think
it's a massive
global impact of this. Professor has been wanting to jump in for a while, so I'll let Professor come.
You see, whether it is Jammu Kashmir, whether it is the Northeast, there are some commonalities. The problem is, in both areas, the government thought that if I pump in sufficient amount of money, I bribe them, I basically pour in a lot of money, I will basically be able to buy peace. It did not work in the Northeast, it did not work in Jammu and Kashmir. And that is why you had 5th and 6th, the developments of 5th and 6th August 2019. It is because the government recognized, the Indian state recognized that the policy of buying off people, buying off, trouble, that the Tughlaq policy of bribing troublemakers had failed. They decided to do a branch and root transformation. That they did. Look, development is one part. There is no doubt about it. But let us look at the other point also. The so-called mainstream parties of Jammu and Kashmir, the regional parties, got together year before last. They tried to turn the elections, the local elections in Jammu and Kashmir, as some sort of a referendum of Article 370. And they failed. So, even when it comes to the broad basing of this particular appeal, there are limits. Yes, there is a fact that a large section of the population may be bitten by the virus bug. But remember, international jihad also had a context. The context was the Anglo-Soviet rivalry, which centered around Afghanistan, which centered around Iran and in Saudi Arabia. Nobody wants to follow Afghanistan any longer. Iran has having problems of its own, and Saudi Arabia also has turned track. Now, you talk about basically what the Soviets tried to do in Afghanistan. The Soviets built townships, but they also bombed Afghanistan. The Americans spent good money after bad in propping up a corrupt regime, and they undermined that regime completely. So there is a quantitative and a qualitative difference between what India is doing in Jammu and Kashmir and what happened in Afghanistan. And we are basically trying to develop local institutions also. Look, Lalitji, I understand the enormity of the tragedy that your community has faced and the
No, sir,
lack of
just a
response.
second. One second, sir. I'm not here just as a Kashmiri Pandit. I see, my India is in danger. Unless we contain Kashmir Jihad in Kashmir, you will have dozens of Kashmiris erupting in the rest of India. You are already facing such situations
I
in Bengal,
agree.
even in Uttarakhand,
I
even
including
South,
agree.
your,
Kerala,
I
everywhere.
including
agree.
your
I
states.
agree. I
So,
agree. And a firm law and order and a firm hand is required. Unfortunately, if you look at the nature of the Indian state, we act only when in a crisis. We acted in Jammu and Kashmir when everything else had failed. All our attempts at bribery had failed. We acted in Jammu and Kashmir. And I am afraid that is the way we will act in the other places as well. We will
no, but
not be as
this
proactive as we need to be, but
is
nonetheless, this is, yeah,
but I think what the BJP government under Prime Minister Modi did with Article 370, the abrogation of that article, was indeed very brave and much required, and something
right?
that they were committed to doing. So I don't think
Yes.
that they
And
acted as in a reactionary way. This
no,
was
no, but
very
the
much
question is,
part of
no,
what they
no, see,
wanted to
first,
do.
first thing, see,
Can
first
I
things first.
just a
The
second?
fact is
5th
that the
of August.
BJP also, fifth of the BJP
I'll come
also
to you, Lalit.
gave
I'll just let the professor finish
BJP
his thought.
also gives the PDP a long hand. Okay, there is a time for everything. They give the PDP a long hand, 3 years to be exact. When it was manifestly clear that this was not working, the government of the day acted. So timing is important. Timing is extremely important. That there are certain things you want. Why doesn't the government do so immediately? For example, we are being told, why doesn't Modi speak on Manipur immediately? In politics, timing is everything. And our timing with respect to Article 370 in Jammu Kashmir was absolutely perfect. It was perfect domestically, it was perfect internationally. We got it absolutely right. Now, there are micromanagement issues. There are micromanagement issues that have to be sorted out. But I would believe that the broad thrust of government policy on Jammu Kashmir, I think, is broadly right. Fine tuning is always a problem.
Okay, Lalitji, please come in.
First of all, first thing, 5th of August 2019 was a historical day. I mean, this is it's after hundreds of years you have shown a Sanatani Soj at the helm of affairs in Delhi. And Narendra Modi, I need him for next, India needs for 1,000 years. But I'm afraid I need to have clones of Narendra Modi heading every, especially some critical departments in the center. He's not being guided. You removed Article 370, but you put certain conditions. In the reverse order, the Article 370 is almost back. That's also it neutralizes the impact that could have had on the local population. And you said you have to have a fear of law. You have to have a fear of law. I think that has got neutralized. Second, and I'm sure today, tomorrow they will resort back because you cannot sustain. Advaita, you won't believe it. What kind of security grid is in operation in Kashmir? It's very tight, and kudos to our security. And JNK police is playing. Imagine the Seri police, which used to salute the marching jihadis in the streets of Srinagar, are today fighting in the forefront of war against Kashmir Jihad. So salute to the Kashmir JNK police people. Indian Army has a secular. There's not a single. I don't think there's a single district in whole of India for where a boy has not, Jawan has not sacrificed his life in Kashmir. And we have to. You can't prolong the agony. You're prolonging our agony and certain decision like at removal Article 370, it was a very harsh decision. It had to be taken, as Professor pointed out. It was the right time to do it. They have done it. But comparing with situation like, for example, Northeast, for example, to start. Imagine you recall the famine of Assam that time. Mizo was part of the whole area. And imagine Lal Denga was from Indian Army. He had served Indian Army. He begged for relief from the central government. The government was so callous. They did not provide support and relief. to the people. That's when he took to the arms. It was because of deprivation, because of neglect by the center. And don't forget, India, Mizoram is the only place where we have bombarded, used air power against terrorists.
Our own citizens, yes.
Trying to do it
Aizol.
once in Jammu and the in area in Poonch area. Uh, this Farooq was the chief, and he did not permit to do that because we had the same areas. Shala Bata, this another place very close to that. Not Shala Bata, that Batan Duria, very close to that, and he did not allow them to do it. And Kashmir, I must give credit to the Islamists. They have never complained against deprivation, against economic discrimination, etc. Kashmir Jihad is not a reason because there was any lack of development in Kashmir. In fact, average Kashmiri lived, his standard of life was better off than most Indians and rest of India. You dislike you as a taxpayer, as an exchequer of India, they ensured that the common Kashmiri Muslim lived a long life. Unlike in Jammu and Ladakh were discriminated against. Imagine what was the even now you have homeless people in Jammu, not you won't find homeless people in Srinagar, Kashmir. Your Rohingya city is settled in Jammu, not in Kashmir. This is how it was. So Kashmir, as I repeat, Kashmir Jihad is not because of lack of development. It's not because of any discrimination by the central government. It's only because as pan-Islamic forward, territorial loyalties, and we need to understand that. When talk about Afghanistan, well, why are you bombard that? The Muslims are vulnerable to this kind of propaganda. It's also commonly said the ISI is a creation of America. I said, why only Muslims have to fall to that propaganda? They're using that. It's a fact also. ISI's casualties are looked after at Golan Heights by Israeli. They set up medical camps on Golan Heights before Syrians cover the whole of to pack the whole of Golan Heights. The ISIS casualties were looked after by Israelis because enemy of an enemy is my friend. That's how they have been doing. In Syria, Syria, one of the most civilized and secular civilizations and ancient civilizations in the world. They destroyed that. It's not only that they are Kafirs against. In Kashmir also, they are against Shias. In Kashmiri, I don't know if the professor science Kashmiri language. They say in Kashmiri, in this Wahhabi Sunnis, it's their doctrine. Kafira pata rafizan lar. After the Kafirs are done with, the Shias are to be targeted. Look what they do. Charapachar, this Khurram Valley in north, this Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It has been going on Shia-Sunni war. It's almost like a war. It's not being talked about here. It's the past week. There's almost a war between Shia-Sunni in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It's the Taliban eliminating the Shia because they are considered to be Kafirs again. Again, I say Muslims in Kashmir also being targeted because they also being considered as Kafirs because of their loyalties towards if they have towards India. Only because that's Wasim Bari was not killed because he was a BJP party worker. His brother, his father was family. They were annihilated in one go. I had to correct the BJP. So they want to claim that our party man has been killed. I said no, he was killed because he was an Indian. He wore Indianness on his chest. That's why he was killed. And every Muslim, there's a jihad. Even there's a stage in jihad when you have takfiris involved. They decide who's a Muslim, who's not a Muslim. Even amongst the Muslims, they will say, you're not a Muslim, you're not a good Muslim. Amin Butt was killed just because she was a singer, she was an artist. At the same time, when Taliban had taken over in Kabul, they had a very famous comedian, Muhammad Ishad Rashid.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
At the same time,
there was a viral video of him also before he was being taken.
How he was killed. He was a comedian, actor, worshipped. Even yesterday, I think yesterday, very famous Pashto singer of Kabul has been killed in Peshawar.
Who was killed?
Noor.
Who was killed?
Very has been killed in Peshawar. She's a very popular singer of Afghanistan, Persian singer. She's Noor. I don't recall her full name exactly. Noor, very popular. Pashtun is, by the way, a very sweet language. Like you like Bengali music, you like French music. The Pashtun sounds equally sweet. So I like to listen to Persian music whenever I get an opportunity. Noor was a very good singer, and she has been killed only because she's a woman and she is a singer. In Kashmir, I say my present governor is inaugurating cinema hall there. I say in Lal Chowk. I don't know, Advaita, you've been to Srinagar, Palladium Cinema Hall, iconic hall. It used to stand in the heart of the city, Lal Chowk. And I, student, first day, first show, I seen so many. I recall Bobby I've seen there. And it wasn't only Kashmiri Hindus who lined up for the line. Every Kashmiri Muslim would be there. Muslim, you won't see them in burqas. We used to skip college. We used to get concession on student tickets.
But
Every
even then,
boy,
but
girl,
even that young actress who was in the Ramir Khan film, she quit acting. Then there was a band of girls, all girl
Yeah.
band that stopped performing. So these
yes.
indications have been coming for a
No,
while now.
the ruins of Palladium, the ruins of Palladium are monument to the intolerance that has been prevailing in Kashmir, and nobody talks about it. You are
No,
you are
there's a
opening
reason
a
for
cinema
that.
hall, but I tell you, you
Lalit,
have to provide security to the cinema hall.
yes,
Not only
yeah,
the
that's
building,
important.
the people who are going to watch the cinema inside.
Remember, why was cinema targeted? Because they felt that this is a medium that would basically connect the Kashmiri community to the rest of the country. So if you sing and laugh at the same films that the rest of country is laughing, that creates a sense of unity, and they would not have it at all. The hypocrites that they were, many of these characters who would actually oppose the setting up of cinemas in Kashmir, they would come to Jammu and watch the same films. The hypocrisy of it. First day first show, क्यों यार वो film देखने गया था? I said, what nonsense is this? Here you tell me that this is basically a corrupting influence on us, etc. And here you bloody, the moment you come to Jammu, you basically watch those films. That is why the opening up of cinemas in the valley, I think, is such a big thing. But as Lalitji says, security is paramount. But I also say, unless they were confident about the security, they would not have basically given this such a thrust. That they're giving this a thrust, people are coming and watching, I think is in a sense some sort of a turning point. Let us see how far this goes. Because remember, while cinema halls have been opened in the valley, cinema halls in certain parts of Jammu, for example in Badarwa, Punch, Rajouri, Kishtwar, they have not yet been opened. And these are iconic cinema halls of that time which need to be opened, which was closed when the insurgency happened, when militancy occurred. They have to be opened as well. You need these public spaces where people of all communities come and enjoy together. That I think is a very important pillar to building up, the sense of oneness. And that
And
is why
social,
I think
social life
absolutely,
and interaction and all
absolutely,
That
those
reminds
things.
me
absolutely.
of Jammu. You're going to refer, these upper reaches of Kishtwar were called liberated zones as once upon a time. They're adjoining the Kashmir, South Kashmir. And I give all the credit to the people because their demographic order is in a favorable condition, favorable proportion, and they were able to fight it out. And also those village defense committees were formed, they were
Yes.
given arms, they fought it out. Otherwise, Jammu Dogras have suffered equally. They suffered immensely, and it's only because they fought it and because of their demographic presence across Bhadrawa, Kishwar, Punch, Rajouri.
Yes.
Rajouri you still keep on happening there also, but Bhadrawa, Kishwar especially upper reaches of Kishwar. And even now, whenever Jammu has been victim of terror attacks so many times. Even in temples, they have been bomb blasts outside Runath Mandir, the iconic Runath Mandir. So it has been there again. We have not been able to look into what the demographic change that was sought to be brought in Jammu, Roshni Act, for example, and Jammu people, the nationalists of Jammu, Dogras of Jammu, the demographic border of India receded by 288 kilometers south of Srinagar the day Kashmiri Hindus left Kashmir. It's in Jammu today. It's our northwestern demographic border. It needs to be strengthened. You should not take it for granted. You don't have, you don't have to tell them to do it. The Jammu Dogras are. I have stood there. My
By the
neighbors in
way,
Srinagar, in Kashmir, our neighbors were hundreds of years old. Can you imagine, Advaita? over 700 centuries, neighborhood was they were all Hindus, 100% Hindus. So as the genocidal persecution continued, the people converted, and neighbors became, who were once Hindus, they became Muslims. So our neighborhoods in downtown Srinagar were hundreds of years old, but they closed their windows and doors on us when jihadis were holding the AK-47 rifles and looking for Kashmir. But these people of Jammu, जिनके साथ हमारी भाषा नहीं मिलती, culture नहीं मिलता, and they opened their hearts for us. Whenever we go back to our Panu Kashmir in Kashmir, we're going to have Yad Washim there, and Dogra, the Jammu, are going to be on top of the pedestal. They are the people who helped us survive. Otherwise, genocide is not only extermination; it's also it's also to kill the will to survive. It's also to kill the resistance against it, and we kept it fighting. I take credit. If Kashmir continues to be part of India, much of it goes to the credit of Kashmir Hindus who have been resisting it in exile. For whichever media,
Advaita,
similar or
one thing, Advaita.
Okay, Professor, last
Jammu
comment.
town, yeah, Jammu town in Jammu and Kashmir is the only place where you will find Dogras, Kashmiri Hindus, Kashmiri Muslims, Kargilis, Ladakhi, Buddhists, etc., all living together and all living in peace.
He's frozen, which begs the question, if it can happen there, then why can it not happen in the valley? And why should it not happen in the valley? Of course, the answers seem obvious, but I think the solution lies somewhere in really people. And you're right, Lalitji, it's an ideological battle in many ways. And that sense of, yes, please go ahead, Lalitji.
You have to, as I said, you cannot Jihad is invincible as on today, unless reforms come within Islam. And I see a ray of hope in Saudi Arabia. The prince Salman.
Yes,
MBS. I think
MBS.
he's taking steps, and gradually, I think we should see a ray of hope. But in Kashmir, till then, you have to contain. How do you contain it? First of all, Gupkar gang, Jawaharlal Nehru had imprisoned same Jawaharlal Nehru, who almost created a Pakistan quasi-state, Islamic state within the secular state of India by granting 370 to Sheikh Hafsa, his friend, He put him in jail for 10 plus years, and India could survive that. We could not hold this Gupkaris for more than 1 year. The day they came out, they are just spewing venom. They are Ajipos. Unke apne bacche kuch nahi matte, they are doing very well abroad. Their children, grandchildren outside, they are enjoying their lives. But it's they are trying to provoke the children of poor Muslim families in the name of Islam.
And Pakistan occupied Kashmir. The kind of demographic change that's taken place there has been Punjabified to such an extent.
You have to see. Amit Shah said in the parliament, reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir is not end of it. Will continue. Ladakh is liberated. It's no more part of Jammu Kashmir. Ladakh is problem. They started enjoying their 15th August from 2019. Jammu people, why should they suffer? Why should they suffer? As he rightly pointed out, there are Islamist people in Jammu city as well, but they dare not voice anti-India slogan anywhere in Jammu. They can't do it. So why shouldn't Jammu be a separate state? It has all the traditions of being a state. And why shouldn't Kashmir be further reorganized into a union territory for Kashmiri Hindus who can come back? Aborigines, unless you're Aborigines there, you can't claim Kashmir is back. And this notion that Kashmiris will not come back, most of us given our youth towards Kashmir. And I'm not going to be going back and be there as sting duck. Yeah. You had Prime Minister package employees there. During G20, they were asked formally, don't come out to their houses. Got returned. I want central government to be responsible for my safety, security, political, and economic empowerment. Well, how can that happen? Not tomorrow you'll have elections there. It's the same Mufti in Gujarat so going to be there. And I can't, especially when not a single case has been got. Judiciary, for example, we went to Supreme Court. They just threw away the plea for justice. They said, why will you find the witnesses? Can you imagine? That's why I'm promoting that tweet of this IPS officer SSI who says he's a witness because he attended that case. He was received a call, went to the crime scene and saw that women were raped and one was still alive and they have been shot in the vagina. I want Supreme Court and the social, collective consciousness to be at least do something now. And secondly, about this judiciary and political empowerment. I don't want to be. You will not expect anybody to go back voluntarily unless you provide that system, unless you provide that ecosystem, which I feel I would be. I'm here on your channel. I can speak. I've been detained by Delhi police, but I never had threat of life. I'm a professional. I have to live so many. I have to wear so many caps since morning. This is the third time on the screen. I also look out for my family. I have to do my other work. So why should I be willing to go back? Why should I be? I've not given up. And I said, it's not my perspective about Kashmir. It's not limited to Kashmir. If you do not contain Kashmir Jihad in Kashmir, India has a great challenge. Dozens of countries are emerging in it.
On that somber note, thank you everybody for joining us on this very, very interesting discussion. We were meant to discuss something else, but I think we just got so involved in what Lalitji was sharing with us, and it's so wonderful to hear from you and get a first-hand perspective, and of course you as well, Professor. And being in Jammu, I'm sure that you keep track of what's happening. And I want to thank everybody for joining. Please do like. I think it's an important discussion, so it'll help the algorithm. It'll reach out to more people if you like this video. And do share it also with anyone who you think is interested. I think there's some very important points that have been made in the present context. I think fair points that really should be shared widely. And thank you again, everybody, for watching. And thank you to both my guests for being here this evening. Thank you.